Hey guys, today's video is sponsored, which is crazy. I've never had a video sponsored before, but not only is it sponsored, it's sponsored by ABMP, and I couldn't be more proud. ABMP stands for Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals, and they are a company that every massage therapist should have at their back. They offer support and resources for people like you and me who are out there in the field doing what we do best, and they make it easy by offering content and support and resources that are invaluable. So 20 years ago when I graduated from massage school, I signed up with the ABMP and I've never looked back. They are a company that offers not only insurance, so if anything goes wrong with my practice, I'm totally covered, but they also offer a host of extra benefits, which they don't need to do, but they do, and they're incredible. So some of them that I think you should know about right off the bat are an exam coach if you're studying for the NBLEX or the national exam, which will totally help get you in gear and get you ready. They have multiple publications, so online and getting in the mail real magazines that have articles that inspire me every single month, every time I read them. They have a video library of over 200 videos that are your CEU credits. So if you're a member, you log on, you scroll through, you watch the video, you get a continuing education credit. And one of the coolest things I think they have is my former massage therapy instructor from when I was in school is a guy named Clint Chandler. And he's incredible and he knows his anatomy beyond anything that I could ever dream of. He has created what's called 5-minute muscles. So you log on, you click on 5-minute muscles, you pick the muscle you want to learn about, and he walks you through everything that you need to know. Where it is, what it does, how to palpate it. He is a resource of information that ABMP has in their back pocket, and we are so lucky to have access to that. So there's one more really cool thing. I've created my first continuing education video, and it is officially a part of the ABMP library. If you're not a member, go click on this link, get $24 off your membership, and have access to everything immediately. It's the best. I haven't even listed everything. There's too much to list, but I can't recommend it enough. ABMP has been my support system from day one, and they have never failed me. I love them so much, and I want you to love them too. So go click on the link, head over there, check them out, and tell them I sent you. All right, on to the video. The adductors as a group are ripe with connective tissue, and where there is connective tissue, there is inflammation. Hence my choice of butters for this video. As always, I want to start by warming up the tissues, but I'm also going to start with explaining some important relationships that exist in the upper leg and how this pertains to your work into the adductors. So this ropey set of muscles that we're focusing on today live on the medial aspect of the upper thigh, and it's important to understand their relationship to the quads, which are on the anterior side, and the hamstrings, which are on the posterior side, because with all of the movements of the hip and the knee, it's important for these muscles to be able to slide against each other and work with each other and not get stuck and create dysfunction. The other important piece of the puzzle is that the adductors lie on the yin aspect of the body as opposed to the IT band, which is yang. So that duality and that relationship and the understanding of the tenderness and the sensitivity of yin muscles, protected muscles, more vulnerable muscles, is going to be essential to your approach. I'm starting with a flat palm, and I'm really focused on the medial aspect of the knee because one of the adductors, the gracilis, comes down and crosses over the knee and attaches onto the medial aspect of the superior tibia. So starting off with a little warmth here is going to help loosen that anchor that is coming down most inferiorly and allow me to start working up into the adductors themselves. I've placed a bolster under my client's knee and turned her leg out into a slightly laterally rotated position, which offers me better access to the adductors. And in this position, I'm starting by gently squeezing the adductors as a group and offering a little tug down away from their origin, which is up in the pelvis. As you well know, we are not coming in direct contact with where those muscles originate. So the most we can do is work in a way that starts to open up these connective tissues and allow for a little more space without feeling intrusive or vulnerable to the client. To increase the effect that my work is having on these tissues, I'm just going to add in a little bit of a twist. So I'm using my right hand and hooking in with my fingers to pull up away from the hamstrings and using my left palm to push down away from the quads. That little bit of a torque on the adductors is going to increase that stretch, and especially that stretch up into the most superior aspect of where these muscles attach down. At this point, I'm going to stay focused just above the medial knee into the three muscles that form the pes anserinus tendon. So I'm thinking about the sartorius, the gracilis, which is one of the adductors, and then the semitendinosus, which is one of the hamstrings. They all come down and attach into the tibia, and I want to make sure that they slide against each other and work with each other. Now that I have warmed things up in the muscles themselves, I can start to move the joints around a little bit. So I'm going to pick up my client's leg, and I'm using my left hand to help with the drape so that she feels nice and safe. I'm hooking her foot into my left hip, using my left hand to support the lateral part of her knee so she can just let her knee drop down. And as she does that, the adductors are going to stretch. So if I bring her leg up, the adductors are nice and soft, and I can do some work with that knowledge with the adductors in a shortened position. But as I let the leg drop, the adductors lengthen, and I can use that again to my advantage. To make things perfectly clear, I've got my right hand on her left thigh, definitely steering clear from anything that is unsafe, and all I'm doing from here is lunging forward. So this is offering some movement into the adductors and creating a nice stretch in the hamstrings and opening up the hip in general. This is a really great position for a pin and stretch for these muscles. So like I was saying before, if I use my left hand to create a shortening and a lengthening position with her leg, as I bring her knee up, I'm shortening the adductors, pinning them down with my right palm, and letting her leg drop down. That's stretching out the muscles. So I'm pinning and stretching the adductors and allowing for those deeper ropey tendons at the origin to start to open up and find some space. I've got her leg repositioned back down onto the bolster, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So instead of pulling down away from the groin, I'm going to actually collect the tissue up towards the groin. And the difference is this: when you've got an old injury in the groin, old scar tissue can be really hard to manipulate, and pulling and stretching that tissue can be really effective. But if you've got a newer injury or dysfunction, the tissues are going to be a lot more sensitive. And the idea then is to crowd the muscles up toward the groin and allow for that healing process to happen. Sometimes a flat palm is all you need to make this work really effective. My intention is to guide the tissues up towards the groin and create a nice myofascial pull from the knee up to the hip. If you want to sink in with a deeper soft fist or a forearm, that is totally fine considering who your client is. So the main things you want to be careful of are the blood vessels of the upper inner thigh, most specifically the great saphenous vein. You want to be aware of any indications of deep vein thrombosis, any blood clotting, any precautionary health history that might come up. You want to be sure that you understand your anatomy and you understand your client and you're practicing safely. From here, if you know you've got the go-ahead for deeper work, you can start to sink your thumbs in and separate the tissues of each of the individual adductors. The lower half of this muscle group, you're really only accessing the gracilis, which is most superficial, and the adductor longus and the adductor magnus. The adductor brevis and the pectineus are higher up on the inner thigh, so separating the lower fibers is mostly about keeping them fluid against each other and also how they articulate with the quadriceps and the hamstrings as the knee flexes and extends. So as I move from the knee up into the groin, I'm just creating some linear separation between these fibers and making sure that, like I said before, there is some fluidity around how they articulate with each other. This is one of the basics of muscle health and can be really essential when it comes to the groin. You can get really detailed with this work, but I want to bring your attention back to the idea that this is a yin part of your body. So when I sink in with my thumbs, my intention is to keep my thumbs nice and flat, and the pressure is going to be gentle but firm. There's nothing that should feel sharp in here, and as a matter of fact, communication is going to be essential. With all of the protected vessels that live in this area, you want to make sure that the work that you're doing is staying in the soft tissue. Working up into the tissue that is considered technically the groin itself, I've pulled the sheet down and I'm going to work through the sheet. And this serves two purposes. Number one, the client feels very protected and the work I'm doing feels very safe. And number two, the sheet offers a little bit more of a grip and it's easy to slide over these hypertendinous attachments. So compressing down through the sheet and creating a little friction is going to be really effective in this area. There are 5 adductors altogether, so if you look at the detail of the muscles in this region, use that knowledge to your advantage, move around very slowly, and find the different angles that really get to all the different nuanced aspects of the complicated groin structure. One of the tricks that can help you work a little bit more effectively and help your client feel a little less sensitivity in this area is to create a distraction. So I'm moving my left hand around the outside of the hip, and I'm going to start to sink into the TFL, the quads, the sartorius, the more anterior muscles that'll create a support into the front of the hip and offer a little bit of a shift away from the focus into the groin. Like I keep saying, this area can be really sensitive, so you want to make sure that you're doing this work in a way that the client can receive it. The other advantage to putting pressure into the more anterior part of the hip is that it pushes the adductors up a little bit away from the deeper attachments at the femur. So by sheer displacement, these tissues are being pushed up, and the work you're doing into these tendons themselves doesn't necessarily have to be as deep. In a similar move, if I switch my hands, so I'm using my left hand now to do the work into the upper adductors, and I shift my right hand into the hamstrings, the distraction and the displacement of the adductors is coming from the hamstrings and pushing them up. So in a similar way, you're creating that same effect, but more often than not, a groin strain comes from tight hamstrings. So bringing the awareness and the attention into the hamstrings at the same time that you're doing this work into the groin can be like a 1-2 punch. You're addressing both issues at the same time. The other really cool advantage to this technique is that instead of compressing down into the tissues, you're coming in at angles on the front sides and the back sides of these tendons. So the work that you're doing is a lot more thorough and complete. Switching gears, I'm going to create a little more separation between the adductors and the hamstrings and the adductors and the quads. So I'm using my fingers to pull the adductors up away from the hamstrings, and I'm using my thumbs to push the adductors down away from the quads. And I'm just going to create this alternating push and pull between the two muscles while I'm keeping the adductors in my palm. This work can be on the intense side. So it's really good for somebody with an old groin injury or old scar tissue in there, but it can also be tender and sensitive, so make sure you flush it out, make nice, and bring their attention back down closer to their knee. I wanted to offer you guys a different mechanical advantage, and to do this, two important things have to happen. Number one, you've got to place a lot of bolsters under your client's knee so that her leg is really lifted up away from the table. And number two, I'm now standing on the opposite side of the table so that I'm leaning in instead of pulling towards me. But the important thing to remember is to keep my arms up away from anything that is private and ensure that the work that I'm doing is actually in the groin tissue and not anywhere else that might cross a line. So once I've found a good mechanical advantage, I'm sinking into the tissue like I was doing from the same side of the table, but now I'm really able to sink a little bit deeper and create a little bit of friction, and on top of that, open up some space within the hip joint. So as I lean in, I'm pushing the femur down away from the pelvis. I'm creating a little friction into those tendons, and I'm opening up a lot of space. This is incredibly effective for deep and older scar tissue, and the ability to work a little more aggressively from this position is greater. So for somebody who is ready for this deeper work, this is a great position. If you're still finding like you need to work a little bit deeper, I've pulled my client's sheet back a little bit. And my client, if you noticed, has athletic shorts on, so I'm definitely feeling safe around this. But for now, I've pulled the shorts up, I'm sinking deeper into the skin, and my intention is to push down towards the table and then down towards her knee. And that lengthens these tendinous attachments out while I'm creating friction, so that pulling them into a longer space and breaking up that scar tissue starts to reach deeper levels of where the scar tissue has most likely adhered and has been causing a lot of limitations. If you've definitely got a scar you know you're working on, it can be beneficial to grab the entire leg. So I'm using my hands to pull the entire femur up towards me and then sinking down with my thumb and creating a lot of pressure into one direction. So this is really about once you've broken through a lot of the superficial layers and you're starting to find that deeper adhered tissue, how then to approach this so that you are breaking through effectively and creating the work that is going to last. I'm obviously still standing on the opposite side of the table, but I'm creating a little bit more of a twist with the pressure that I'm applying. So as I sink in with my thumbs, I'm using my hands to pull the quads and the hamstrings around the femur, opening up not only the adhesions that I'm focused in on the groin, but also releasing those deeper layers of fascia that have most likely become restricted because of the adhesions in the groin. So making sure once again that your work is global and all of the tissues are playing together nicely. I've got some nice sideline work in my other adductor video, which I'll include the link in the description below, but I wanted to include a little extra something for this video. So I've got my client in side lying, and as you can see, I've pulled the sheet down over her adductors so I can get a really good grip. And what I'm doing here is increasing the slide factor between the adductors and the quads and the hamstrings. So as I pull the adductors up, I'm using my right hand to flex and extend her knee, which is going to influence what the quads and the hamstrings do. So that as I pull these soft tissue components up away from the underlying structures, I'm squeezing with my left hand and ultimately increasing the ability for the antagonistic quads and hamstrings to do what they're supposed to do and play nicely with the adductors that fall in between. As always, when you're done, flesh it out, make nice, because happy muscles equals happy clients.